So then for the First Communion, just kneel there in the middle, okay? You can have him come up during the confetti or at the First Communion time. Come up with the confetti or kneel there. Yeah, in the middle, okay. Yeah, no. No. At the First Communion time. Then they receive the communion first, you receive the second one. So then we're going to be back again in Iloilo, a few considerations. In the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, amen. It was in this weekend in 2012. There was on the April the 14th and April the 15th. I had the communication, the doctrinal declaration about April the 15th, and the letter of April the 14th of 2012. On April the 14th, the Bishop Fillet and the two assistants wrote a letter to the three bishops. They were saying, don't go with the modernist Rome, don't make a deal with modernist Rome, stay in the footsteps of Archbishop Lefebvre. And the day later, April the 15th, we published the doctrinal declaration, which would not release until a year later. And the declaration just would have been just yesterday, I guess you could say the 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 6 years now since the releasing of that the doctrinal declaration. And in that time, the battle for the faith is continually diminished in our society of St. Pius X, and the communication of the truth and where the society stands, what the society stands for, has been a great mystery, and there's been a great loss of faith and a great weakening. And one of the effects of it has been that the stance of Archbishop Lefebvre hasn't had a visible, strong force holding it. The stance of Archbishop Lefebvre that we must stand firm against modernism, we must stand firm against the errors and heresies of Vatican II. We must be very public in our condemnation of the causes of the great evil of leading souls astray. I just visited Australia this last week, read the letter of Father Cummins, one of the many letters of Father Cummins, an Australian priest who stood firm for tradition back in the 70s. And he simply wrote a letter to his bishop in which he said, this new Mass, we see everywhere its bad fruits. We see clergy leaving the priesthood. We see the faithful leaving the practice of the faith. We see the division and falling apart of our families and so on. We see everywhere the bad fruits, and the grace is not coming out of this Mass as it used to come out of the Mass before, in the old Latin Mass. And that the priests and the bishops have a duty ex officio, by their divine office, by their office, by their position in the church. They have a duty ex officio to provide for the faithful the benefits necessary for their eternal salvation, and especially the means of that salvation. That's Canon 682 of the Old Code of Canon Law. That the bishop and the priest are supposed to provide, the parish priest are supposed to provide for the faithful those benefits necessary for the eternal salvation. Those benefits necessary to keep their faith. And that's especially the Holy Sacraments and the Latin Tridentine Mass, according to ecclesiastical discipline. And that's especially the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass, the baptism and the traditional rite, the receiving of the Holy Communion, the confirmations, the holy marriages, and the giving of the necessary things for the salvation of the souls. And the primary duty of the priest is to preserve this faith. Well, what happened? The faith was taken away from us with the new Mass. The faith is taken away from us by Vatican II. And out of 1 billion Catholics, more than 900 million of them no longer believe in practice of faith. And they were upset in the beginning in 1970. Everyone was upset in 1970. They were all upset about the new Mass. They were all upset about Vatican II. Every parish was not accepting it. In 1968, 6,000 priests in Spain alone, one country, 6,000 priests wrote a letter to Rome saying, we have heard about your new Mass that's supposed to come within the next year or so. Came in 1969. We don't want it. We 6,000 priests of Spain, 6,000 of the priests of Spain signed a letter. We don't want this new Mass. So let's look back at that time and compare it to now. In 1968, 6,000 priests in Spain. Several thousands of priests throughout the world didn't like the new Mass. They didn't like Vatican II. They didn't like the changes. So when those changes came, there were many conservative priests who said, I don't like them. Father Cummins mentions about one Australian priest who said, all right, I'll say the new Mass, but I'm not even sure if it's valid. And he wasn't even a very conservative priest. So then when he said the new Mass, and he said the new consecration formula, this is the chalice of my blood that shall be shed for you and for all, that sins may be forgiven. He wasn't sure it was valid. He thought it might be invalid. So therefore he said quietly under his breath, Hic ex calix sanguinis mei novidere testamenti, and so on. He said the old formula under his breath to make sure that it was valid. Another priest said, we're always going to use only Eucharistic prayer number 1. And we're going to make sure that we still teach our faithful that the Mass is a sacrifice. But by the late 70s, all this was forgotten. Those priests who were saying that the Mass might be invalid, they were saying the new Mass without any trouble. They were using Eucharistic prayer number 2 and number 3, and not only Eucharistic prayer number 1. They were switched. They had changed, and there was this movement of over 250 bishops who were going to be with Archbishop Lefebvre, and they were going to stand up against the modernism, and they were going to be completely against it. There was only one bishop, and later on Bishop de Castro-Meyer came to join him. And they said it couldn't go on, this Vatican II. And there will be another pope that's going to come. And he's going to straighten things out. So when 1978 comes, and Pope Paul VI, the wicked pope, finally dies. And he was a wicked pope. And he did finally die. And when he dies, they're going to get a conservative pope. And everything is going to change. And the word came after John Paul I died, after only being pope for 28 days. Now we have a Polish pope. Poland is very conservative. Poland is very religious. Poland is very traditional. So this is going to be a very traditional pope, and everything's going to change with this new pope, John Paul II. And there was great hope that everything was going to turn back towards tradition. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. Now let's look at our situation now, 2012, in the Society of St. Pius X. And in 6 years, 2018, in the Society of St. Pius X. In 2012, the word was made very publicly, we're going to make a deal with Rome. We're going to be united with modernist Rome. We're going to be accepted by Rome. Rome is showing signs of being very conservative. Rome, under Pope Benedict XVI, is showing signs of coming back to God. We have a conservative pope. A pope that gave us Summorum Pontificum. A pope that lifted the excommunications in 2009. And we see a movement, even though the general movement of the church is becoming more liberal, we see a movement towards tradition. We see a upswelling of a conservative movement within the church. These are not the times as before. There are voices in Rome that are speaking about conservatism. And they are no longer talking about the council, the council, the council. Things are looking better. When this word was given to us, in 2012, in a public way, there was an uproar all throughout the Society of St. Pius X. When I gave the sermon on May 27th, the dog barking sermon on Pentecost, on May 27th down in Davao, it was translated into more than 6 languages. The sermon was translated into French and translated into Polish, translated into Portuguese, Spanish, Japanese, Korean, and it was published 1 week later all over the world in the Society of St. Pius X. Now I was told that there are at least 200 priests that are behind everything you're saying in that sermon of May 27th, Pentecost 2012. And they're not going to accept the modernist change in the Society of St. Pius X. We're not going to accept the deal with Rome. And the priest said, don't worry, there's never going to be a deal with Rome. Rome is too modernist. The society says there's going to be a deal, but there isn't. We're not going to accept the Novus Ordo priests. We're not going to be approved ever by these modernists. Remember many priests saying back in 2012, we're never going to be accepted by these modernists. Now we have a new leader in the Ecclesia Dei, Cardinal Mueller. He's way too liberal. He doesn't even believe in the Ascension. He doesn't believe in the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. He has many heresies, and he's the one in charge of Ecclesia Dei. He'll never work with us. And Pope Francis then comes into the picture in 2015, a little bit later, 2013, a little bit later. And now with Pope Francis, certainly there'll be no deal with Rome, because he's too modernist. What happens? The deal continues. And in 2014, we have the approval of our confessions. And then we have the approval of the marriages going on right now, the society marriages. And then we have continual meetings with Rome. And it's no longer a cause of scandal like it was in 2012. Just like in 1970, everybody was scandalized by the new Mass. Everybody was scandalized by the change of Vatican II. And there was a large, strong movement, a strong minority that stood up, that said, we are not in favor of this new. We don't want your new Mass. We don't want your Vatican II. But in a few years, those priests that were saying both consecrations, the new consecration and the doubtfully valid consecration of the new Mass, and adding and supplying their own consecration of the traditional rite, they stopped doing it. They stopped being scandalized. I remember one priest who told me, the day they accept altar girls officially by Rome, that's the day I'm going to join tradition. And then John Paul II officially approved of altar girls. So I went to the priest and said, well, they approved of altar girls now, Father. And the priest told me, the altar girls are more reverent in church than the altar boys. So he changed his mind. And now we see the exact same change going on within the Society of St. Pius X. Let's wait till we get a new pope, they said in 1970. Let's wait till we get a new superior, they said in 2012. The priest will never tolerate working with modernist Rome. The people will never tolerate an overly liberal church. Well, they tolerated it then, and they're tolerating it now. Not only that, but surprising numbers have accepted it. And what about the exodus? Sure, there's been an exodus. Just like in the 1960s and 70s, many people left the Catholic Church. They left the church. Now also in the Society of St. Pius X in the last 6 years, throughout the world, shrinking. Throughout the world, people leaving. Going over to the adult, going to the Sede Vicantists, going nowhere, going back to the regular Novus Ordo. The great exodus, and some coming to the resistance and staying with the following of Archbishop Lefebvre's position, but leaving in all directions. And then there's the stance. What conservative meant in 1970 is not the same as what it meant in 1980. And what it meant in 1980 is not the same what it meant in 1990. It continued to change. So likewise in the SSPX, the meaning of conservative has changed. Some priest told me back in 2012, if we ever make a deal with Rome, that's the time to get really upset. When we start working with modernist Rome, when we start getting approved by modernist Rome, that's never going to happen. Then the approval came for the confessions. And they said, well, that doesn't really count because we don't really believe that anyway. Now the approval has come for the marriages. And they say, well, I'm not going to do that marriage in my parish. And yet the marriages happen in your parish. Right now the bishops are approving of the marriages of the Society of St. Pius X priests, which is an implicit rejection of all the previous marriages. Some priests are already refusing to do marriages within the Society of St. Pius X unless a Novus Ordo priest does them. There's already been a threat. Some of our faithful been threatened that they will not be allowed to be married, like back in America and in Minnesota just a few months ago. Unless the Novus Ordo priest did the marriage, but the people said, no, we will not have the Novus Ordo priest marry us. So at the last minute, they changed their minds and the society priest did the marriage. But the liberalism continues. It continues to go down and down. And as the society gets more liberal, we find on the websites the promotions of Cardinal Burke, the promotions of the Bishop Schneider. We have the continual promoting of the liberalism. Father Tim, my brother, even told me in his trip of the Philippines, taking the statue of Our Lady of Fatima all over the Philippines, traveling over 2,000 miles. It was the policy of Father Stalin that we speak about Mary Immaculate and speak about the devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary and get people to join the militia, and do not speak about Vatican II, and do not speak about the new Mass, even though they were being condemned everywhere where they went. Even though in almost all cases the local bishops were against them, they still didn't speak out against Vatican II and the new Mass. We're going to rather speak about the importance of the devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary. We're going to speak about the importance of the praying to Our Lady. And then later on they'll learn about that. The people aren't ready to deal with the problem of Latin Mass versus New Mass. And yet in the old days, in the days of Archbishop Lefebvre, and the days of the society before the changes of the recent years, we used to tell people right on day one, why is there immorality in your family? Why are there broken marriages? Why is it that the Catholics are no longer practicing the faith? Why is homosexuality spreading far and wide? Why is all matter of violence increasing? Because Vatican II has destroyed the faith of Catholics, and because of this, the Catholic Church and the Catholic people, which are the bulwarks of morality in society, they have lost their morality and they have collapsed. What's the cause of the problems? It is Vatican II. I met a young society priest in the airport on Palm Sunday, just a few weeks ago. And he said, you know the problem's not Vatican II, Father. You know that's not the problem. It's modernism that's the problem. After we had a little argument. And I said, Vatican II is the problem. You have to speak out against Vatican II. And he says, no, Vatican II is not the problem. It's modernism that's the problem. Vatican II is the council that made modernism the teaching of Catholics. Vatican II is the council that spread modernism to our faithful. Vatican II is a council that made modernism take a solid root in the world and take over our world. It is absurd to say that it is not the problem. And yet the priests are doing this. And they're interacting more and more with the liberals and the modernists. What is happening is a prophecy that was made in 2012 by myself and by Father Giselle. That most likely, the way in which this society will lose its faith completely is not by making an actual written document that says we are now all together with modernist Rome, just like the Fraternity of St. Peter, just like the Indult, but rather a slow breaking in, kicking out the priests that are too traditional and too conservative, isolating the other priests that have stayed inside that they lose their power, putting into position priests that are more modern. Father Robinson from Kentucky, he's going all over the English-speaking world. He's a preacher and the teacher in the seminary in Australia, and now he's going around and promoting evolution. The Catholic priest wrote a book on evolution. He wrote a book on the Catholic Church and science, promoted by the Society of St. Pius X and sold in our bookstores. It doesn't say on the front, written by Father Paul Robinson. Father is removed. My own brother is with a mainstream society, a layman. My brother with 10 children, at a conference asked Father Robinson, why doesn't it say Father Robinson on your book? You're a priest. You know you're a priest, don't you? Why didn't you put Father on your book? And he said, we didn't put Father Robinson on the book because we didn't want it to appear like this is an official society thing. So he didn't even put Father Robinson. What's wrong with putting Father Robinson? And then in the writings in there that he's now a main professor in our seminary, what's he teaching? Liberalism and modernism. He's teaching the modernist view about evolution to our seminarians, training our future priests. Does anyone have a problem with it? No. My brother is very upset with his children. He says he doesn't want his children to believe in evolution. But the fact is that here it is. The liberalism continues, and as it gets worse, the opposition to the liberalism gets less. Just like in the 70s. They were very upset in 1969. Everything got worse. And the worse it got, the less upset everyone became. And the less reaction there was. And what happened in the 60s and 70s in the mainstream church, happening in the last 6 years in the Society of St. Pius X. What do we really stand for? Look at the official publications of the Society of St. Pius X. Open up the website today. What do they promote during Lent of 2018? Technology detox. You're recommended to do a technology detox. That was a recommendation for this Lent. Spend more time with friends and family. Spend more quality time with your friends. The 10 Commandments of the technology detox promoted by the Society of St. Pius X. The friend in front of you is worth more than the friend on the device. Use your internet time well. No mention of pornography. No mention of heresy and vomit that is promoted on the internet. No mention of sin and evil. No mention of Christ. Just simply a technology detox, so that you, by spending less time on technology, by spending more time with your friends. They even made videos by our Society of St. Pius parishioners. Some of them were my former students in the videos. Some of them were my former parishioners in the videos. And they're coming out into videos, and they're coming out, and they're all hugging each other and shaking hands in a pagan environment. And this is the promotion of the SSPX. The faith is being ripped out. Naturalism is replacing the supernatural. Modernism is replacing the Catholic faith. And the faith is being sucked out of our people. And then some people still hold on to 2018 like another 1978. So now it's April the 16th, and in a little while it'll be July. In July, we'll be able to throw Bishop Fillet out. He's the problem. Throw Bishop Fillet out, just like throw Paul VI out. And then once we throw Bishop Fillet out, we'll get a solid, conservative, truly Catholic SSPX priest as our superior, and he will then bring us back to tradition, bring back the fight. What we're rather seeing is the prophecy of Father Jahir, which he told me in 2013, early January 2013. He said, the SSPX is filled with termites. It is filled with white ants. They have eaten all the walls. If you break a piece of wood, you can splice it back together. But if it's eaten with termites, all you can do is burn it. All you can do is throw it out. All you can do is build anew. The corruption is too deep. I met a society priest in the airport a few weeks ago. First thing he tells me, our priory is a party priory. First thing he tells me. You don't tell that to me. I'm the guy who doesn't like the society, the new Society of St. Pius X. Try, we're more spiritual now than we used to be. Don't tell me it's a party priory. So they're opening up little bars inside of their priories. Each of them make sure they have a vacation time. They only run one circuit on a weekend. They've reduced the number of circuits. Some priests are saying they don't want to hear confessions anymore, other than the actual scheduled times. They won't do it. I can't do Holy Communion. I had a sick call case just a few weeks ago. The priest of the society said he can't do the sick call because it's outside of his jurisdiction. What is jurisdiction anyway? Did you learn what that is in the seminary? It's outside his jurisdiction. He doesn't want to interfere with a Novus Ordo priest. Several other priests have come in to people that are dying. The Novus Ordo priest went in and anointed them. The society priest comes in and he did not repeat the anointing. The Novus Ordo anointing is doubtfully valid. Most likely it's invalid, but the best you can say is it's doubtfully valid. If a Novus Ordo priest comes and anoints someone, and the traditional priest comes behind, you anoint them. Now we have multiple cases where the priest isn't doing it. Oh, Father Bob came and did his anointing. I won't do an anointing. This is the loss of faith, the sucking out of the faith. And they're not teaching the faith anymore. And they're no longer upset about what's wicked about the council. Oh, they're still good in the council. But people know we're still against the council, they say. Are you? Met another priest recently, very recently, former Society of St. Pius X priest, saying the Latin Mass. Now he's saying the new Mass. And what do they say? Well, I'm still the same as I was. I still teach like I did before. Well, before, when you were in the Society of St. Pius X, you were taught that the new Mass is intrinsically evil. Now you're saying the same as you were before, but now you're celebrating the new Mass. Already a society superior he met in India in 2013, he's now celebrating the new Mass. He's in the Novus Ordo parish in France, in Toulon. The other priests have gone back to the Novus Ordo, only this time they go back and they're still friends of the society. We used to go back and we were upset with them when those things happened. Now they're still our friends. Now they're still our friends. The faith is being ripped out of our people. Look at the last 6 years. And whoever thinks that July 2018 is going to be the magic fix, when we can elect a new superior general. No, it's not the magic fix. Bishop Fillet, I believe, will be put back in. I think there's a 70% chance, in my opinion, that he goes back in, 30% chance that he doesn't, which is a good chance that he doesn't, but I think it's more of a chance that he goes back in. But even if he doesn't go back in, they're going to put someone worse, not someone better. When Father Bizik was removed as the superior of the fraternity of St. Peter, did it get better? No, it got worse. The liberalism got worse, not better. So likewise, when Bishop Fillet is removed, the liberalism won't get better, it will get worse. It will get worse. We don't look for a magic fix like that. What is necessary? Hold firm the faith. Hold firm the traditions of our fathers. Speak clearly against the errors and heresies of what's going on in the world today. April 15th, 2012 and April 14th, 2012 were days of death for the Society of St. Pius X. When on April the 15th, 2012, in the name of all society priests, Bishop Fillet sent a doctrinal declaration to Rome, signed and sealed, that says, we believe that the new Mass is legitimately promulgated. We believe that Vatican II can be seen in the light of tradition, and that we must see the religious liberty, ecumenism in the light of tradition, and tradition in the light of religious liberty. And it was then published in March 2013, Clarunum. Where was the uproar? It didn't exist. Instead, many priests make excuses for it. Other priests say it means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. And as Father Hugo says to all these priests, all right, if the declaration doesn't mean anything, and if no priest believes in that declaration, then this Sunday, get up in the pulpit and condemn it. Since nobody believes it, you shouldn't get in trouble. Since you're going to be condemning Vatican II like we always have, you shouldn't get in trouble. But what will happen if you stand up this Sunday, Father X of the Society of St. Pius X, and you speak out against the doctrinal declaration of 2012, which you say nobody believes in? What will happen to you? It's called Requiem Aeternam, Dona Eis Requiem. That's what will happen. Death. You'll be wiped out. You'll be obliterated. You'll be set aside. You'll be finished. So we must stand firm in the faith, maintain our fight of the faith in this present battle. On April 15, 2012, now 6 years ago, now 6 years have passed. Is the society stronger than it was then? Superiors. Father Couture, our former superior, he told the priest that in Canada he could not speak out at a conference with a known promoter of homosexuality. The priest did it anyway, multiple times, with the backing of Menzingen. Father Couture could not stop it. They are having marriages under Father Couture right now in Canada. Marriages by which a Novus Ordo priest does the marriage, and the society priest says the Mass under Father Couture. Would Father Couture ever accept those things when he was our superior here in Asia? Absolutely not. But now the same Father Couture has to accept it. And Father Vachon, old-time priest of the society, one of the old-timers, not one of the new ones. He was also stationed here in Asia once upon a time. And Father Vachon was the one who celebrated the Mass with the approval of the local bishop in the Novus Ordo Church about a month and a half ago. And the Novus Ordo priest, Father Bob or Father Bill, did the marriage, witnessed the marriage, as if Father Vachon could not do it. This is a scandal and a sacrilege, and it's demeaning of Archbishop Lefebvre, demeaning of the Society of St. Pius X, demeaning of our role of holding the Catholic faith. It's the death of the faith. It's the death of the faith. And Father Couture can only stand by and watch. And they have new rules and regulations about everything. The faith is being ripped out. The only answer is to stand for the position of Archbishop Lefebvre, continue exactly as we have for the last 45, 50 years since the Council, and that is, the Council is from the devil. As the Blessed Virgin Mary said it was, there will be an evil council, said Our Lady of Fatima. That was the evil council. There is an evil Mass. It's the new Mass. Then we must stand up against the evil council and the evil Mass, and we must fight against it. And then when we find ourselves last year, it was 40 or 50 Novus Ordo priests, Novus Ordo lay people, Novus Ordo professors of liberal universities who put together a declaration, a correctio filialis, that they sent to Pope Francis, noting 7 heresies of Pope Francis. It was the Novus Ordo that did that, not the Society of St. Pius X. The SSPX put out, under the direction of Bishop Fillet, a document which is still available on dg.org and sspx.org, excusing Pope Francis for Amoris Laetitiae and saying that it was not heretical, but that it may possibly lead one to believe dangerous and incorrect things. But it was not heretical. Meanwhile, the Novus Ordo priests and the Novus Ordo bishops, one bishop, say it's heretical. They're stronger than we are. And after it was sent out, and after it became popular, after the fact, then Bishop Fillet signed his name to it. So Bishop Fillet has his name signed to a document that says Amoris Laetitia is heretical, written by Novus Ordo priests. He has his name assigned to a document which says it's not heretical, written by an SSPX priest. What has happened? We've lost our faith. We've lost our fight. So we need to stand up firm in the true fight, maintain it in the present battle, and realize that the summer of 2018 is not going to be the magic summer of the magic fix, because some new Giuseppe Sarto, some new St. Pius X is going to be elected the superior of the Society of St. Pius X, and he's going to fix everything. No, he is not. It's not going to happen. We must recognize the society is filled with white ants. It's filled with termites. It's given up the battle of the faith. It's continuing to suck the souls away from the faith. It's using modern tactics and modern everything, and turning away from the way of our Archbishop Lefebvre and the way of the truth. And we must stand firm for the old-fashioned way of the society, for the truth that we've been promoting for the last 50 years. And the victory of the Blessed Virgin Mary is going to come. But it will not come by compromise, and it will not come by playing games with the devil as being done right now in the new society. In any case, to persevere in the faith, not play games with the truth on this 6 years after that, was April 14th and 15th, 2012. So God bless you all. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.